First bill on the agenda is House File 128. Chair Rarick, I believe that is your bill. Please come forward and to the testifier table with your testifier. Chair Rarick, since you are not a member of the committee, I will move your bill before the committee. We will lay your bill over for possible inclusion in the committee omnibus. Please begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's so good to be back here. I do miss being on this committee. It was about a decade I got to serve with you. So this bill comes out of the brilliant mind of one of the people sitting at the table. And I'm going to acknowledge him. He won't like it, but I'm going to do it anyway. So Mr. Johnson was reviewing statutes and came across this inequity between criminal sexual conduct statutes and prostitution. And believe it or not, our statutes are misaligned in such a terrible way that criminal sexual conduct of first degree, third degree, and fourth degree is a higher penalty than prostitution of a minor. So if you're going to sell a minor or buy a minor sex, the penalty is actually lower. And Representative Mueller and I worked for nearly 2 years alongside my testifier, Caroline Palmer, and a group of about 75 people to rewrite quite a bit of the criminal sexual conduct statutes. And this is one piece that, as we continue to do this work, we find new pieces that we've missed, and this is one piece. And I just want to thank Mr. Johnson for doing his due diligence in the interim and actually looking at statutes in such a way. So what it does exactly is House File 128 will increase the penalties to be the same as criminal sexual conduct for prostituting a minor. Very specifically, if the victim is under the age of 14, the penalties increase from 20 years to 30 years, which is the same as first degree CSC. If the victim is between 14 and 16, the penalty is increased from 10 to 15 years, which is the same as third degree CSC. If the victim is 16 to 18 years old, that penalty is increased from 5 years to 10 years. And that's the same as fourth degree criminal sexual conduct. So that is essentially what the bill does. It is yet another piece that has come to light as we did quite a bit of work for many years, actually, trying to reform the criminal sexual conduct statute. So this is one piece I think that really needs to be done, because we definitely don't want to say to a minor that, someone offered you money for sex. That's a lesser penalty than if they, took advantage of you. And you can read all the statutes as to ways that children can be taken advantage of. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Caroline Palmer, because she can tell you a little bit of how horrendous it is for a child to be prostituted or trafficked.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon again, members of the committee. My name is Caroline Palmer. Again, I'm the interim supervisor of the Violence Prevention Programs Unit at the Minnesota Department of Health, where we focus on human trafficking and sexual violence prevention. I'm very pleased to provide some technical assistance today for House File 128, and I really want to thank Representative Rarick for authoring this bill and just such steadfast commitment to working on sex trafficking and sexual violence, and we've worked together for many years. So I appreciate being here. The exploitation of children and youth in prostitution is a horrific crime, resulting in short and long-term physical and mental health harms that not only impact the individual, but also families and communities. Children and youth are exploited in many different settings, including within the adult sex industry, in bars, clubs, massage businesses, on the streets, and a lot through the internet, including social media and online advertisements. Sometimes youth engage in survival sex, meaning they trade sex for money, food, a place to stay, drugs, clothing, status in a gang. Traffickers and facilitators and buyers often seek out children and youth who are in vulnerable positions due to their age, race, economic status, disability, identity, lack of familial supports, lack of housing stability, substance use, and a history of abuse and victimization. It is easier to manipulate someone who feels like they do not have love or support, or who feels misunderstood and isolated. In some cases, unfortunately, family members are responsible for the exploitation of children and youth, sometimes trading their young relatives for money, rent, or drugs. A groundbreaking 2014 study led by Dr. Lauren Martin at the University of Minnesota, which is called Mapping the Market for Sex with Trafficked Minor Girls in Minneapolis, Structures, Functions, and Patterns, found that the age of sex buyers culled from police and court records ranged from 30 to 48 years old, while the age of victims ranged from 13 to 16 years old. The buyers described in the study came from all types of backgrounds, including business professionals, many living outside the city and coming in for work or travel. This is just one research example that illustrates the dynamic. Additional research is growing to show how boys are exploited as well through prostitution and trafficking, but services and resources are still catching up to meeting their needs here in Minnesota and elsewhere. Finally, children and youth who are exploited through prostitution suffer harms that can be lifelong. While being exploited, they're subject to abuse, threats, and exposure to drugs and dangerous situations. They may use substances to cope with the pain and trauma or to perform as required by the traffickers and buyers. Long-term impacts include post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety. Victims and survivors may suffer from injuries and long-term consequences to their sexual and reproductive health. In addition, they may end up engaged with the criminal justice system as defendants, which can lead to a lifetime of collateral consequences affecting access to education, employment, housing, and their ability to keep their children if they have any. So there really is so much more that can be said about the many harms that sexual exploitation through prostitution can have on children and youth. But hopefully this just provides a little bit of helpful background. I want to thank you again for your interest, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Chair Rarick or her testifiers? Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify with my friend Director Palmer, just that the comments were sort of talking about underage exploitation in general, but not, the administration is not endorsing this bill, is it? Or maybe you could just clarify about kind of, the administration has a formal position on the bill.
Great. We're providing technical assistance today, as we often do. We're requested to just provide information based from our program, but this is not a bill in the governor's budget.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I may.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so I guess I'll just say, Chair Rarick, thank you so much for your work just in general on these issues. I will say that just speaking individually, I definitely see the point, I guess, raised by Mr. Johnson, then you picked up about the difference between a completed act and hiring and offering, agreeing to hire. And the comparison with criminal sexual conduct. I will say I concede, I believe, maybe I'll ask you this, Mr. Chair, this is going to be laid over, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then in that case, I would be interested in kind of exploring the structure and language. Somewhat, I don't know if I exactly agree with where the penalties be set, and of course, we'd have to see, I assume that there's a fiscal note. Mr. Chair, I guess I'll ask that as well. Fiscal note's
Those
been
are
requested?
all ordered.
All right, thank you, sir. Well, then we'll also just have to see, obviously, how things fit. But thank you again for certainly exploring this, because it's an important thing to look into. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Representative Moeller.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Rarick, for your work. We have partnered together on many bills. I can't see you. This is so awkward. It feels like I'm just talking into the ether here. Thank you. That's better. Hi. Have enjoyed working with you on so many of bills in a bipartisan way that we've done over several years now. And to Ms. Palmer, too, have known you since you were back at the Minnesota Coalition Against Sexual Assault. So many years, and the dedication you have to this important work. Appreciate that as well. I just had one question about the bill itself, and I guess my question is maybe not the bill or just how the law actually works, but right now, if somebody engages with prostitution with an individual under the age of 14 years old, they could be charged with criminal sexual conduct. It might not be one of these charges here under this chapter, but it could be a CSC 1 even. It could be a criminal sexual conduct offense. So I'm not saying that this isn't needed. I just wanted to clarify that there are other tools in the toolbox so that these victims aren't completely without recourse under the current law. That's my only comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? No other questions? Chair Rarick, close it out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. House File 128 is laid over for possible inclusion.